Brazilian President Lula da Silva warns Europe against protectionist policies following a summit with EU and Latin American leaders in Brussels.
At least 12 people injured in the port city of Odessa in Russian strikes that Ukraine claims deliberately targeted grain export sites.
Vladimir Putin will not travel to a summit in South Africa next month over fears he could be arrested under an ICC warrant.
European Union concerned about the growing influence of the far right in Spain as the country heads into general elections.
Brazil's President Lula da Silva is warning against European protectionism. He says that the ratification of the EU-Mercosur trade agreement should happen by the end of the year, but he wants an equal partnership between the two sides. He was speaking in Brussels on Wednesday following a summit between the EU and Latin America, where he made it clear that both sides have the right to protectionism, even if it isn't the best way forward.
A França é muito ciosa da proteção dos seus produtos agrícolas, da sua pequena e média agricultura, do seu frango, da sua verdura, do seu queijo, do seu leite, do seu vinho. Sabe? Então, da mesma forma que a França tem essa primazia de defender a unhas e dentes o seu patrimônio produtivo, nós temos o interesse de defender o nosso. A riqueza da negociação é que alguém tem que ceder.
A letter from the EU side was sent to Mercosur countries back in February with demands on the environmental preservation of the Amazon rainforest. It's another obstacle to the signing off of the trade agreement with the bloc, which is made up of Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay and Uruguay.
Quais seriam os pontos centrais para o Brasil nessa carta?
Veja, primeiro que nós não aceitamos a Carta Adicional da União Europeia. É impossível você imaginar que entre parceiros históricos como nós, alguém faça uma carta com ameaça. Nós não temos problema, nós fizemos uma carta-resposta e achamos que a União Europeia vai concordar tranquilamente com a nossa resposta.
When it comes to Latin America's position on the war in Ukraine, Lula da Silva stressed the need to work quickly towards a ceasefire and again offered his mediation skills.
Por enquanto, nem o Zelensky nem o Putin querem falar em paz, porque cada um pensa que vai ganhar. Ou seja, mas está havendo um cansaço. O mundo começa a cansar. Os países começam a cansar. Então vai chegar um momento em que vai ter paz. E aí vai ter que ter um grupo de países capaz de conversar com a Rússia e conversar com a Ucrânia.
After hours of long discussions, the final declaration from the EU-Latin America summit showed the stark difference of opinions on the war in Ukraine on both sides of the Atlantic. The statement referring to the conflict was weak, without even mentioning Russia.
Images showing the aftermath of a second night of extensive Russian drone and missile attacks on Ukraine's southern port city of Odessa. Kyiv says residential buildings were damaged by the blast or debris and that at least 12 civilians, including a child, sustained injuries in the strike. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Moscow of deliberately targeting grain export sites in the city. The attacks come days after Russia withdrew its participation in the Black Sea Grain Initiative, which enabled vital grain exports from Ukraine. Moscow has said the strikes were aimed at military targets and were in response to a blast on a bridge linking Russia to the occupied Crimean Peninsula on Monday, which it has blamed on Ukraine. The bombing took place amid Ukraine's ongoing counter-offensive and Russian offensive operations. The Ukrainian command sees these attacks as an attempt to make the situation even harder in the south by targeting crucial infrastructure.
The South African government has confirmed that Russian President Vladimir Putin will not travel to the country next month to attend a BRICS summit. Putin is subject to an arrest warrant by the International Criminal Court, to which South Africa is a signatory. That means that they would be responsible for detaining him should he enter the country. But Moscow has made it clear that any such move would be tantamount to a declaration of war against Russia. BRICS is an acronym for Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, and the group is held by some as an alternative to the G7. A spokesman for the South African President, Cyril Ramaphosa, said that the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov will represent Putin at the summit. The Kremlin has denied issuing any warning to Cape Town, but insists that everyone knows what the arrest of the Russian president would mean. Putin is wanted by the ICC in connection with the kidnapping of Ukrainian children.
Just one day after French President Emmanuel Macron criticized her appointment, America's Fiona Scott Morton has decided not to take on the role of European Union's next chief economist. In her resignation letter, Morton said that she was stepping down from the position because of political controversy that followed. It comes after Macron argued that appointing the American economist to the role would not help the EU become more independent from the US, and that a citizen of the European Union would be a better fit for the job. But Macron insisted that he had nothing against the Yale professor with degrees from multiple institutions and previous experience working with the Obama administration.
Long gone are the days when Spain was one of the fewer ACs in Europe without a far-right presence in its institutions. But since 2019, the Vox Party has held 52 of Parliament's 350 seats.
Desde luego se ha blanqueado a Vox, no solo tras las elecciones en Andalucía. Ciudadanos y el PP aceptaron montar una manifestación con Vox en la Plaza Colón, estamos hablando de febrero del 19. Es decir, en España no hubo nunca lo que se llama cordón sanitario, cordón democrático frente a fuerzas de extrema derecha.
With the polls suggesting victory for the right-wing Popular Party in the upcoming general election, a coalition government that includes Santiago Abascal's Vox Party is more than likely. Its growth is a result of several factors and can be traced back to the push for Catalan independence in 2017. That was compounded by corruption scandals in the Popular Party and the socialists taking power thanks to the support of extreme left and secessionist parties.
Y eso evidentemente es capitalizado por Vox porque ahí encontramos uno de los mayores enemigos de Vox, la que ellos consideran la anti-España.
Es un fenómeno que también se explica por el miedo a lo desconocido, el cambio tecnológico que estamos viviendo y que está haciendo que hay un clivaje nuevo, ¿no? No solo izquierda-derecha, no solo nacionalista, no nacionalista, sino, por ejemplo, rural-urbano. Y por último, y no menos importante, el ascensor social, el contrato social parece haberse, no sé si roto, pero al menos sí puesto en cuarentena.
Looking ahead to the European elections in June 2024, Brussels is concerned about the effects of a coalition between the Popular Party and Vox.
Pondría sobre la mesa la posibilidad de una futura alianza tras las próximas elecciones europeas entre el Partido Popular Europeo y los conservadores y reformistas europeos.
But how big will this extremist wave get?
Cuando llegan, vemos que no están en las cuestiones del día a día. Es una guerra identitaria, que no ideológica. Por lo tanto, cuando han gobernado no han repetido. Trump no repitió, Bolsonaro no repitió. Veremos a ver si Meloni repite. Y solo en los países donde esas creencias están realmente imbricadas en la sociedad, como Polonia y Hungría, resisten gobiernos así.
Israeli police using water cannons to disperse protesters who massed in central Tel Aviv on Tuesday night. There were some of tens of thousands of people who blocked highways and train stations in demonstration against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's controversial judicial overhaul plan. Now in their 7th month, the protests have taken on a sense of urgency in recent days as Netanyahu and his allies press ahead with the programme. The first bill in the package, a measure that seeks to limit the Supreme Court's oversight powers, could become law as soon as next week.
Thailand's constitutional court suspended reformist Peter Lim Jaroenrat on Wednesday in another blow to his hopes of becoming the nation's next leader after a stunning election win. His efforts to form a government have stumbled since the May poll. He's widely popular with young Thais, frustrated after almost 10 years of military-backed rule, but he's fiercely opposed by Thailand's conservative establishment. The court could disqualify Peter from Parliament altogether for owning shares in a media company, forcing his suspension.
Australian castaway Timothy Lindsay Shaddock has set foot on land for the first time since being rescued by a Mexican tuna boat after he was adrift in the Pacific with his dog Bella for 2 months. The 54-year-old had set sail in April from the Mexican city of La Paz, bound for the tropical French Polynesia, but his catamaran was damaged by bad weather weeks into the 4,000-kilometer journey. He survived on raw fish and rainwater, and he has admitted he didn't think he would make it.
The 2023 Women's World Cup kicks off in Australia and New Zealand on Thursday. This year, the football tournament is bigger than ever, with 32 nations competing for the trophy. The United States is the team to watch, aiming to make history with a third consecutive title. But they are set to face stiff competition. Among them, England stands tall as the reigning European champion, spearheaded by a determined lineup. Joining the charge are football powerhouses Germany and the Netherlands, along with Spain, whose star player Alexia Putellas makes a triumphant comeback after a 9-month recovery from a ligament injury. And there's even more to play for, with FIFA tripling the prize money compared to 2019. The tournament kicks off Thursday with New Zealand facing Norway in Auckland, and Australia playing Ireland in front of a sellout crowd of 80,000 people in Sydney.